Yes, Reds. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Weekly Armchair Sports Talk. I'm Jamie. I'm your host for the evening, and I'm joined by the wonderful Reece and the other Jamie as well. The Jamie's been around a little bit longer than I am, so he's Jamie 1, and I'm Jamie 2. First off, how you doing, lads? You doing all right?
I'm all right, thank you.
Yeah, I'm keeping good, mate. Always a pleasure to see you boys and talk a bit of Man United. So always nice to see you as well, Reece. Been a while, mate.
It has been. Your beard's gotten a lot more. You're getting the facial hair, and I'm just stuck here. We'll leave it at
that. Well, obviously the big topic tonight then, Casemiro, done deal, agreed, announced by United about 15 minutes ago as well. You know, obviously we were basing it off Fabrizio's Here We Go earlier in the day, and United have done their best to beat the weekend rush and tweet it out. So first things first, Reece, I'm going to come to you. Talk to me about the signing. What do you think?
Well, first of all, it is a fantastic signing. Like there's not very often that Man United actually go and sign. I know people overuse the phrase, but he is actually a genuine definition of it. It's not very often that Man United go and sign a world-class player, let alone a world-class midfielder, let alone a world-class player in a position that we've actually lacked for years. I think it's a telling point. It's a reflection. It's great for us, obviously. I mean, 30-year-old with 4-year deal. I didn't expect a 4-year contract. I won't lie. I was expecting maybe 3 years with an option for an extra year and that, make it up to 4, but I didn't expect 4 with an extra to make it 5. But it's somebody that goes in there, gives us very important experience, somebody that has a winning mentality, which some players lack. But I am going to stress the point, and I think you lads will agree with me, and everybody else that is watching, obviously, smash that like button and subscribe to the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk. The one thing that really does think is, as good as a sign as it is, it's also, I think, a deflection, by the ownership to try and deflect us from us putting pressure on them. It's great for Ten Hag that his squad's been improved, and that's all important to me. Obviously, I want Ten Hag to have the best facilities possible, the best squad possible, but I do think it is a deflection by the board and the ownership to try and deflect any media pressure like they've got, especially with obviously the empty Old Trafford protest that's going to happen on Monday night. But overall, I'm buzzing that we've got a player like that, because it signals the end of one partnership that, frankly, is just as pathetic. So yeah, I'm all right with that.
Yeah, spot on. And we'll come on to ideas around the ownership and stuff just a little bit later. It's something that Jamie and I were talking about just off screen before. But Jamie, talk to me. Casemiro, are you happy?
Yeah, I kind of got the same sort of feeling as Reece has got. I think that he's a fantastic signing. He's a player in a position that we've needed for a long time. We've sort of neglected that position for a long time. So we've got a world-class player now, and he is world-class. People like to say that he's over the hill and that now. He isn't. He's a fantastic player. He's played for arguably the biggest club in the world consistently for a long time. Brazilian international, and he's a specialist in that role. He is a defensive midfielder, and there's not a lot of world-class defensive midfielders out there, and he's one of them. So don't be fooled by that he's over the hill. He can't get in the Madrid team. Like, Real Madrid are evolving, and they've brought in new players this summer, and they're going in a different direction. It doesn't mean he's not good enough to be there. Ancelotti actively said he didn't want to sell him, but he understands that he wants a new challenge. And it sounds, all the noise coming out of Casemiro's camp sounds very positive. He wants a new challenge. Don't get me wrong, he is coming for a big payday. I think we need to be realistic about that and understand that that's kind of all we've got to offer at the moment. And it is, like, there's no point hiding from it. But he's a fantastic signing on the pitch, and exactly what Reece said, he improves us dramatically. He gives cover for the fullbacks, but he's a fantastic ball-playing, deep-line midfielder as well. So he gives us a lot of option going forward. The only issue I have with the deal, and it's not necessarily an issue, I just don't like the way it's been done. We've went from sort of target to target to target. We were getting De Jong. Everyone was buzzing for De Jong. All of a sudden, that's off the table. Then we want to go in for Rabiot, and all of a sudden, now we're in for Camavinga. Like, I'm a person in my own life that has a lot of structure, and I like things done properly, and I like to sort of stick to a plan. And if I can't get target A, then I don't go for target B. And I get football doesn't work like that, but I just don't like the fact that this has just come about so quickly, because it just feels like a rushed deal. And everything that's going on around the club anyway, I'm sure we'll probably touch on it briefly in the show later. It just seems to me that it's scare tactics, that they've sat around the boardroom table and thought, right, we've got no choice but to throw money at this now. Like, this wasn't their intention. And this is kind of why I feel like we've signed a world-class player, but it just doesn't quite feel right. And I don't know if you boys have the same view. Do let me know if you just want to jump in. But it's just like, he's a great signing, but it's just the way it's been done. But I'm kind of trying to see past that and appreciate the player and the signing, but also in the back of my head think, nah, I'm not buying that. I'm still Glazer out. I mean, I've been Glazer out consistently for years anyway, so it's not going to change now. But I just feel like this is what's going to happen over the next few weeks. They're going to fling money left, right, and centre, hoping that appeases the fan base, and we just need to stick strong together as a fan base and unite against getting them out once and for all, because then we can really appreciate us growing as a club and bringing in these types of players, knowing there's no dark cloud in the background, if that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry cutting there, Jamie, but I do agree. Sorry cutting there, mate. I do agree, like, completely about like what Jamie's just said there in terms of like the squad and that they will just pump money. I actually do wonder where the money's actually coming from. Like, I actually, on the back of that, I do concern where it's obviously we've lost 300 million in 3 years. There's very limited amount of funds in, like, as a cash flow in the club. I am actually very concerned about that. But obviously, recent talk about obviously United, like ownership, etc. Like, it's coming out fast. Obviously, the fans are pressing it as much as they can. They are trying everything they can. I'm not sure if it's to stabilise the asset, although I wouldn't be surprised. Like, try to stabilise it in any way to get the best deal for them to sell, which any owner would do. Like, it's not just our ownership. Abramovich would do the exact same thing. Like, he done the same with Chelsea. Like, he specifically amount of money he would want, he got it. Like, so it's just on the back of that. But I do agree, like, over the next 2 weeks, we've seen it from credible journalists have said that the two front runners in the transfer window for the last 2 weeks of the season, the opening transfer window of the season, the two front clubs, funnily enough, are Chelsea and Manchester United. One's got a new owner willing to back his club. The other is an owner that is under severe pressure every single year because the fans simply, sorry, Keane, but I'm just going to say it in the nice way possible, couldn't give a rat about them. Like, plain and simple. See, I almost swore. See, I apologise to Keane. You just couldn't give a rat's ass about them. And I think that's a circumstance about they are trying anything they can to block fans from getting beside them. But level-headed fans will know. Level-headed fans will know, like, they're happy that we're making the signings, but that's not our primary concern. It's not our primary focus. Our primary concern and focus is getting them out of the club. We appreciate whoever comes in. We appreciate that. It's great for the squad, but it's behind the scenes is more important than what's in front of us right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to go back to Jamie, you saying about sort of the timing of the deal seems a bit off. I've got to agree with you there because it's the way it's been done with 2 weeks left to go in the window. This is a signing that he's not a hidden gem. Do you know what I mean? Casemiro is not somebody that our scouts have pinged up in the last few days and gone, that's someone could fit our system. You know, Casemiro has been a world-class player for the best part of 5 years now, you know, and he'll have been on the hit sheets for pretty much every club across the world if they needed that sort of position. So the fact that, don't get me wrong, like, I love when our club deal with Real Madrid in terms of how quick it gets done. You know, we don't seem to have any nonsense. You look how quick the turnaround was with Varane, and I know the jury's still out on that transfer, etc. But in terms of prolonging deals, it never seems to happen between us and Real Madrid. But I agree with you massively that it does seem to be a bit of a rush, given the fact of what's been talked about recently in terms of the protest on Monday, like we've mentioned, all this talk about Jim Ratcliffe eyeing up, teasing offers to buy the club. It does not surprise me that the Glazers have all of a sudden found £60 million in the back of the couch and gone, tell you what, we'll throw a utility defensive midfielder at them that they've been crying out for about 6 years now. It's a shame that this happened when Pogba's gone. I'd have loved to have seen a midfield that is actually functional with Casemiro and Pogba. I think Casemiro could have done a lot of the dirty work and allowed Pogba to excel, but he's gone and we need to move on with that. I am excited to see, because I think the partnership of Casemiro and Fred works really well for Brazil. It allows Fred to operate in his preferred role, which is one of the brighter sparks we got out of the Ranić period, was Fred operating more as a bit of an 8 and being able to step out into the attacking third. We saw, he was Ranić's top goal scorer at one point, wasn't he? So Hopefully the Casemiro signing can do that. So just to talk just a little bit more about the motivations, what we think behind signing Casemiro. We've mentioned that there's the protest on Monday. Reece, what else do you think might have encouraged the board to maybe step up now and buy an elite level defensive midfielder finally?
I'll be honest, I'm not actually sure. Also, fun fact: Casemiro and Fred have only ever lost one game together playing for Brazil. Fun fact. I think that was the Copa America final, which they should never have lost in the first place. Arguably, dirtiest final I've ever seen. But I'm not actually sure if there is any additional motivation. I mean, that'd be a brilliant chant. I generally just think it's the biggest game in club football is fast approaching in about 72 hours' time. The fans for weeks on end, like months to be honest, have went, we are going to enter Old Trafford, we're still protesting. They've made it very clear public-wise, like fan groups, the lot. It's no coincidence that we've chosen the right game to do it. We've chosen the biggest game in English football and one of the biggest games in world football, if not the biggest game. But I generally don't think there is any real motivation, because I'm not sure if Ten Hag really actually wanted Casemiro, which is not a problem anyway. Obviously it's his team, he wants to build it. It's a great player to have in your team, but I'm not sure if it was his. I'm not sure if it was his signing. If it is though, great, because at least we know he's still got a brain. But I purely just think it's down to the board. I don't think it's the manager. I don't think it's the club. I think it's deflection. Purely and simple. I think it's deflection.
Yeah, I've got to agree with that. Jamie, anything to add or disagree with there?
No, I think it's a really good point. I think I've seen quite a lot of people say what Reece just said there, which I just thought I'd pick up on a bit, that he doesn't necessarily think it's Ten Hag signing. I totally agree with that, because I feel like there's no secret that we wanted a Dutchman in the midfield. I'm not even going to name him, because I've said his name about 4 million times over the past 100 days. So we all know who I'm on about. And then I just can't get, the thing that I'm struggling with the most, and I can speak about it on stuff like this. My girlfriend just can't relate to it when I speak to her about stuff. But you guys will get it because we talk football. But I just can't get how we've went from Arnautovic and Rabiot to now Casemiro. I just can't get my head around that. Anyone would think that a billionaire wants to buy the club and they're panicking, but I think it's a great analogy that it's probably not a Ten Hag type of signing, but I feel like he wouldn't have. Another way of looking at this, and I only thought about this earlier, sort of in preparation for the show and thinking what we were going to discuss and that, I just thought, he wouldn't have been able to sign a Casemiro for a Utrecht or an Ajax. That's just not possible, So I feel like saying he doesn't fit Ten Hag's sort of style and that, I do get where people are coming from with that. But I also think that when you get the opportunity to work with a specialist in that position, I think Ten Hag's managerial ability and coaching ability will allow him to he'll probably have to learn from the player, but the player will have to learn from him. And me and Reece have quite a lot of dialogue sometimes on shows, don't we, about tactics and stuff. And I might be, let me know in the comments as well, because I do keep my eye on the comments when I'm not talking. Do let me know. But I like the fact, I think Ten Hag needs structure in this team now. And if it was for me, and people might disagree with me, and if you do, that's absolutely cool. You should know me by now. I'm quite opinionated on how I see things. Reece will know as well, and we have a lot of crack about this. I like Martinez next to Casemiro in a 2 in midfield, and then an Eriksen or Bruno in front of them, because I think them two are solid. And from what I've seen of Martinez, although he's been criticised a lot, I think he's very comfortable on the ball. And I think them two could work in a 4-2-3-1. I quite like that. I don't know what people think, but I think that could work. We've got they're very sort of, what's the word that I'm looking for? They're very physical. They're in your face type players, but they're both very comfortable on the ball. From what I've seen of Casemiro, watching Real Madrid play, he's very good on the ball. He breaks up play and gives it to the more sort of ball players. But I think Martinez has got a very good left foot, and he can pass the ball really well as well. And he's not called the butcher for nothing. So he's going to get stuck in as well, you know? And I feel like that allows, because let's be real, like Maguire's not going anywhere out this team. I know he gets criticised every week, but he isn't. They paid too much for him, and he's got an armband on his arm. Whether he should or shouldn't have, that's another conversation. He's going to be in the team. So let's base it on he is in the team. And I want Varane back in the team, as I'm sure you guys do. There's another one that's won it all. He's played with Casemiro as well, which I think is important. He'll know his game. He'll know what to expect of him sitting in front of him. And I want him back in the team. So if it means bringing Varane in to play next to Maguire and allowing Martinez to go in, because they paid £50-odd million for Martinez. He's not just going to sit on the bench. So he has to find a place for him somewhere. And I feel like their types of, and I might be totally wrong. They might try it, and well, they might not. Ten Hag might not try it, but I think that's got some sort of a nice balance to it. And I think it would allow our attacking players to sort of go and influence the game more higher up the pitch, knowing there's a solid base behind them. Me personally, I'd like to see, if we're going to keep Dalot, which I would replace him if we can replace him. We've been linked with Serginho Dest. I like that signing. I think that works. That's a Ten Hag signing. And I think we should go with Malacia as well. A little bit more pace on the wing backs. I've had enough of Luke Shaw. And just get a solid base. And I feel like that we're crying out for that now. We need consistency in probably 6 of the 11 positions on the pitch. And I feel like that would give us it. Do let us know as well what you guys think of that. That's just a sort of take on what I would like to see, but it obviously doesn't mean it's gonna work.
I agree. Yeah. Can I interject for 1 second, actually? Because I was just thinking of something what you were saying is people think of how you were saying about their physical presence. I was actually thinking of a word that people describe for pacey players, in a sense. I think Martinez and Casemiro are actually very explosive. They're not explosive with pace. They're explosive with energy. They're explosive with work on and off the ball. They're, like I said, they're in their face. They're very competent on the ball. They're very good at playing it short or long. But the one thing they're not afraid to do is rip you apart. They will get stuck in. Like Martinez is already, have crippled Haaland once. Casemiro's been ripping midfield defenders apart for years. It's just what he is. I think on the back of that is a reflection of the team. I actually like the fact that it's actually a coincidence that Ralph said we needed more physical but technical players, and we've already signed 2 of them. I think it's a reflection of what we do need. We do need a bit more, but I do like where we're going from here. And I think the best way to describe them both is probably explosive.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think you've both hit the nail on the head there. One thing for me as well with Casemiro is that I do think that, and I'm pretty sure I saw a comment about it as well, that I do think it'll help our defence. I think one of the issues that we have, especially with Maguire, when Maguire gets criticised, is when we get caught in transition, Maguire usually likes to occupy sort of around that midfield third area because he likes to step out a little bit, and he doesn't necessarily have the recovery pace to deal with that. Having someone that is an actual specialist elite 6 rather than McTominay and Fred, who neither realistically like to operate in that area, should hopefully help to cover for him when we do get caught in transition. It allows him to come in and sweep and, like we said, to break up the play. So I think the signing definitely improves us. This is a very good comment from Matt about the money situation. Unfortunately, I think the money, when it comes to deals like this, is a consequence of not only where we are as a club at the minute, our league position doesn't help, and the fact that we can't offer Champions League football to a 5-time winner of the Champions League. He's not going to come for the allure and the grandeur of playing for Manchester United anymore. It's good for him. It's going to be, well, at the minute I've got a good thing going on with Real Madrid. What can you offer me? It's a bit of a new challenge, but at the same time, we're going to have to bump his wages up. And it looks as if, according to the reports, he's going to be right up there with De Gea as one of the top earners at the club. And just to go back to what you were saying, Reece, as well, the 4-year deal took me a little bit by surprise. I don't know whether that's to try and retain some value in him, if they see him as a bit of a transition, a stepping stone midfielder, while we scout and look for somebody else that can play that role long term for us. And maybe we retain some value in him in 2 years, 3 years' time if we look to sell. But is the money a problem, do you think? Do you think signing a midfielder of Casemiro's ilk for 60 million plus 10 million in add-ons and putting him on 350 grand a week, is that a problem, Reece?
I'd say yes and no. Yes, purely because obviously it does raise alarm bells that United are spending so much money on a 30-year-old when he's a quality midfielder. But obviously the ilk of it, where if this had been a buy, I just have to. he rips the piss out of Jamie all the time, and it's beautiful when it's not me getting it. If this had been like maybe a Juventus, or if this had been a Bayern Munich, or hell, if this had been like Man City or Liverpool, because they can offer this amount of money as well, they would get Casemiro for like 40-45 million, whereas we were getting it for so much money. Like we are, like Matt is right, we are getting rinsed a little bit, like in the terms of the price, but that's the negative. But the good bit to it is, though, it's somebody that's in the top three in his position. It's somebody that has a winning pedigree. He's the best midfielder for his country. Just a reminder, Liverpool fans, know your place. And most of all as well, he's well aware of the players that we actually already have in our squad. He's already well aware of Varane. Like you said, he's won the Champions League. He's won numerous titles with him. He's already well aware of Cristiano Ronaldo. He plays with Fred. He's went up against Martinez, international fixtures-wise. So you've got all that in one. There's a lot of familiarity already there, and they speak similar languages. He does not have to take long to embed into the squad. That's, for me, the positive. The negative is the fact that, we are getting rinsed a little bit. But it's not. I don't think it's too big. And to be fair, his wages, am I really that concerned? No. Because, frankly, a man of his ilk, I've said it numerous times, there's players that don't deserve high wages because they've done nothing in the game. He has. He's won everything. The only thing he hasn't won is the World Cup. You know that. Like, that's the only thing he hasn't won. So, if anything, he deserves this type of money.
Yeah, spot on. And also, for the 60 million we've paid for him, and every penny we pay him a week is money that's taken out the Glazers' pockets in terms of dividends and stuff like that. So I'm more than happy. If you want to bankrupt the club by paying high wages and it means that they never take a dividend out of the club again in their life, then, sign me up. The age thing is another one that keeps getting thrown around. And, there's a comment here about Fernandinho playing till 38. Fernandinho, another one, that elite role. He was one of the few midfielders that played that at a top level for X amount of years. And I don't know whether it's, I don't want to put everyone in a box here, but I feel like FIFA does massively interfere with people's perception of age, because, do you know what I mean? Because on FIFA, as soon as somebody hits 30, their pace drops to 65 and pace is everything in a video game. And it just seems to have warped a generation. So you look at when Liverpool signed Thiago, he was 29, nearly 30. No one batted an eyelid. They said it was a really good signing. Granted, they didn't pay 60 million for him or whatever. I'm not talking about the money at the minute. I'm talking about the age of a player coming into a squad. Thiago Silva joined Chelsea when he was 35, 36. Chelsea just signed Koulibaly, 31. These are players that have adapted. Kevin De Bruyne, I know he's been playing in the Premier League for a while now and is obviously one of the best midfielders, if not the best midfielder in the world. But he's 30, and so this idea that a 30-year-old is coming for a retirement and for one final payday in the biggest league in the world is, for me, a bit not. If he was another Bastian Schweinsteiger, I could understand. Bastian Schweinsteiger, before he came to us, was, he was in and out of it, with his injuries. He sat on the bench quite a bit for Munich. And then he joined us and, struggled to get 2 games in the midfield alongside Morgan Schneiderlin. But Casemiro has just won another Champions League. I think he played most of Madrid's domestic season last season. He's got a fantastic injury record. Jamie, do you think his age is going to be an issue?
No, I don't think so. I just want to pick up on something quickly that Reece said towards the end there as well about the wages and stuff like that. If you look at the amount of money that left the club wage-wise last season with Pogba, Matic, everybody leaving, that's a drop in the ocean of that figure, isn't it? So if he's on big money, which he will be, you know what I mean? There's no point sort of acting like he isn't going to be on big money. He is. Because as I say, it's the only dangling point we've got to players at the moment. It's the only cherry we can offer them from the tree at the moment. So I do think that's something that can sort of be discussed. But like, he's not going to leave Real Madrid and not be wanting a payday, is he? Do you know what I mean? So it's a case of we brought in a couple of £1 million on the players that left on freeze, so I don't think that wages is too much of an issue. But with the age wise, it doesn't mean anything to me. That it's just another. It's because he's signing for Man United that's an issue. Like you just said there, Jamie. If he's signing for another club, nobody's talking about it. But because it's Man United and they're constantly in the media and they're the first name on the back pages and stuff like that, it's a big deal and everyone starts criticizing it. It happens with every signing. Like Eriksen was a brilliant player last season, amazing what he's done, come back from a heart attack on the pitch, and all of a sudden now he's overrated because he's going to Man U. Like it's
That's
just always the
delusion of
same. It
football
doesn't
fans.
matter who it is. I'm not even gonna read that because he always puts me off when don't put his comments up when I'm speaking because he always makes me laugh or he always makes me feel bad or something. I'm just gonna try and ignore him a minute.
That's not me this time. I'm gonna guess Keane's on it.
Alan,
no, I also have that access.
Oh, there you go. So it's a Reece.
Nice one. But his age. I think it's important for us at the moment because whether we like it or not, we're going through a transition period. I know it doesn't feel like a rebuild, but we are, and Ten Hag's a new manager. He's going to need some sort of experience to come in. Obviously, we're hoping to get that from Ronaldo, but we don't know. I mean, that takes up a show on its own, Ronaldo, so I'm not going to open that door. But I feel like with his experience and his knowledge of the level he's been playing at and the amount of trophies he's won, this guy's like a serial winner, So if he's going to come into the dressing room, no matter how old he is, you need to sort of step up and look at him and think he's been at the top of the hill, so to speak. I need to learn from him. And players like the younger players like Savage, like Iqbal, Madbury, if he doesn't go out on loan, they need to look at him and see how he conducts himself and how he trains. Like, pick his brains a little bit, ask him what his diet's like, what's he doing to be playing at that top level for so long and winning so many trophies, because it's not easy to play for Real Madrid. Like, do you know what I mean? And how many years has he been there? If anybody can pick that up.
He was there from 2011, I think. 2012, something like that.
Well, there you go then. A long time. And
I think he got loaned out to Bayer Leverkusen.
Yeah, he did, I think. And he's been there for a long time, consistently winning top honours, So I feel like there's an opportunity for the younger players to learn, but he will also bring that experience. And as I said right at the start of the show, that world-class element to that position, because he's a specialist, and there's not a lot of specialist defensive midfielders out there. And his range of quality will improve our team instantly, but I also think his experience can improve the dressing room. And let's be real, like, that's a broken dressing room at the moment, and it needs a bit of personality in there. And if Ronaldo ends up staying as well, he's Brazilian and Portuguese speak the same language. I'm sure they had a great relationship from their time at Real Madrid. It might help Varane settle a bit more because another friend's come in. So it can have a knock-on effect that way as well, which we probably won't even realise. But I'm sure we've played in teams and then our pals come from another team because he wasn't enjoying it. And you just sort of settle a bit more, don't you? And hopefully that can happen as well. But
what else is good as well? No disrespect, because obviously we all, as football fans, I think we've all said it numerous times, we all adore Nemanja Matic as a football player. Like, for what he represents as a football player. We've been crying out for a long time, we need a Nemanja Matic replacement or somebody to come in and just take his spot. We haven't just got a Nemanja Matic replacement, with all due respect to the man, I absolutely adore him. We've got a Nemanja Matic upgrade. Like, immediate upgrade. Like, I absolutely love Nemanja Matic for what he represents as a footballer. But this is a man who hasn't lost his pace. This is a man who hasn't lost his dynamism, and he's still absolutely brilliant. And yeah, exactly. Like, 13 games in 3 years, he's only missed for injury, or even suspension. 13 games, like, that's massive. But I think we finally got the Matic replacement we've actually been craving as well.
Yeah. The biggest thing for me is, like, do you know what I think? Sorry, Jamie, I didn't mean to cut you off there. You can go if you want me.
No, go on, carry on.
The biggest thing for me is that he's coming now where he's not over the hill. Like, people are not looking at him and thinking, he's finished. Like, the biggest thing for me in this whole thing is, and I've been scouring the internet all day, like I'm sure you have, like, seeing what's coming out and what people are saying. I like the fact that Ancelotti, who's in my eyes I remember Ancelotti's AC Milan team, and I was like obsessed with them, and I know you like them as well, Reece, AC Milan.
Hell yeah!
And in my eyes, he's still a great manager. I know it didn't work at Everton, but he's a phenomenal manager, like one of the best ever, And he wanted to keep him, and I think that's the important thing for me, that a world-class manager like that doesn't want to lose him, even though he's bought Camavinga, he's bought Tchouaméni, who are like going to be Real Madrid's future. He still didn't want to let the player go, and he let the player go after a conversation, which, as a Man United fan, that's encouraging. That
Yeah. You know who else that didn't want to let him go? Florentino Perez. He was man of the match in the Super Cup final, and he called him the best midfield player in the world. He didn't want to let him go either, but he told him he wanted a new challenge. If anything, having the balls to say that to Florentino Perez, especially in world football right now, considering what he can offer you in the game, that's another big step for me. That's another thing that he deserves respect for.
And I also think it's encouraging for me, and I don't know what you think, and people in the comments let me know, is I'm imagining that he's got on the phone at some point to Rafael Varane, Cristiano Ronaldo, to Fred or whatever, and asked, what's the state of United like? I'm thinking of coming over. And if it was as bad as everyone makes out to be, and if the dressing room was as toxic as it supposedly is, surely they would have turned around and been like, no, don't bother coming. Or there would have been some form of warning to him there, like, oh, be careful about what you're getting yourself in for. I don't think that's happened. He seems to have been on the blower. And I imagine out of all of them, he'll have been on the phone to Rafa Varane more than the other two, potentially. And if Varane's telling him, look, I don't regret my decision, come along and join us, you'll improve the team, then surely that's got to be a positive sign as well. That the people within the club are encouraging their compatriots and their ex-colleagues and things like that to come and join us. So, look, I think we can all agree that Casemiro is a very, very, very good signing. It's papering over the cracks, and we can all agree that, not one person here is saying that, oh, that's it now. The owners have got my backing again. They've delivered for us. We all see this for what it is, and it's an attempt to deflect from the protests on Monday, from Jim Ratcliffe sniffing around, and for this is the first time in 17 years that it feels like there is a realistic opportunity to remove the Glazers from the ownership of the club, and it's never felt closer. So it's very important, obviously, that everyone still understands that the end game is for them to leave the club, regardless of who they go out and buy. They could go out and buy Real Madrid's Champions League winning squad from last season and put them all in United red, and I'd still be Glazers out. So we're gonna quickly just move away a little bit from Casemiro, sticking on the theme of smoke screens and facades to distract us. There's been a few comments about this. I've not really addressed them yet because I wanted to wait until we came onto this section. Talks of an €80 million to €100 million bid back to Ajax for Antony. Now, we mentioned before about, from Rabiot and Arnautovic to Casemiro, and now supposedly this bid for Antony. Reece, I'll come to you first. Talk to me, what are your thoughts on the deal for Antony? Do you want him to come? Is it well overpriced, or should we be looking at alternatives?
Well, I've said consistently on this channel for a while, even before we signed Sancho, last year. I think Jamie was either in the chat or he was with me at the time, but I know Keane was, and I said specifically there was only 3 wingers in world football that I wanted Man United to sign: Pedro Gonçalves, Antony, or Jadon Sancho. They're the only 3 I actually mentioned. I'm pretty sure I said if we didn't sign Sancho, Rafinha would be another alternative for me, and I'd be happy with it. But on the back of it, I think he's a fantastic player. He's a key Ajax player. Fits the mold that Ten Hag likes. A very fast, technical, aggressive player that's very good with and without the ball. He tracks back, something that our players actually don't do anymore, which is embarrassing. But I do agree with that. I wouldn't overpay on him. There's no need. But it's another thing. It's another brilliant player who's not even in his prime. He's not even in his prime years, which is great for us. At least he'll mold into that. But it's another deflection attempt. It's what I said, 20 minutes ago? If that, where is the money coming from? It really does alarm me. I would spend, I'd say 50, 60 million on him is actually reasonable. I think that's what he's worth, in my opinion, 50, 60 million. But no way, shape or form would I spend that. You go F yourself. I would never have him back. But it is a clear reflection of that. Why are we having to go and spend 30, 40, 50 million more than what he's worth just because we're after him? If we're actually clever about it, we'd wait till next year and get him for less value. He'll be cheaper next season. I would have rather waited, but if we're going to get him, then fine. But I wouldn't spend 80, 90, whatever million on it. I think that's borderline insanity, and it's another deflection move. Any move we make to the end of the season, no matter how good it is grade A deflection. It is top of the tier deflection, and it's not going to work.
Yeah, spot on. I absolutely agree with you there. And I think the thing that stresses me out the most is that, knowing us, we probably will end up paying that. And I think this is a great comment here. Overpriced but not overrated. Yeah, I think I massively agree with that. And I always hate the idea of transfer fees being what we judge a player based on. That's the metric that we base their performances on, because the transfer fee has nothing to do with them. Look at Jack Grealish. Jack Grealish is not a £100 million player, but he's a very, very, very good footballer. But his goal and assist return last season I mean, I loved Jack Grealish at Aston Villa. Do you know what I mean? He was one of those wizards on the ball that I just enjoyed watching. But then you compare his goal and assists to his £100 million price tag, and everyone turns around and goes, it's a waste of money, it's a waste of money. But at the end of the day, the lad finished the season, winning the Premier League with Pep Guardiola, because obviously it's City, they win the league every season. And I think that that's one of the things that Antony will struggle with if we do sign him for £100 million, which is one of the reasons why I'm glad we didn't go in for Sancho. We weren't all in for Sancho when Dortmund wanted 130 million or whatever it was for him at the time, and we got him for 72 the season after. But there's obviously been a couple of ones in the comments. People have suggested alternatives. Now, Cody Gakpo is obviously one of those that has been cropping up left, right, and centre now. He had a better season stat-wise than Antony last season in the Eredivisie. He's managed by Ruud van Nistelrooy, who we're probably going to get a bit of a tune out, obviously, if we can strike up a partnership with him. Pedro Neto as well. So he would be my choice.
He's quality.
Yeah, absolutely ruthless winger. And he stinks of moving to someone like Liverpool or City eventually anyway. So it's one of those that, for me, I'd be going in and trying to pinch him from under the nose. But what do you think, Jamie? Antony, granted, he's probably Ten Hag's first choice, and then above all, I'd always back the manager and bring in the players that they want. But do you think it's not worth it for the money, and should we be looking elsewhere?
Yeah, I do think. I think Hele, is that how you pronounce? I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I think that was a great comment when Hele. Yeah, sorry if I've pronounced your name wrong. One, she said they're overpriced but not overrated is a fantastic comment. And I see Kino dropping in Pedro Neto there, and Reece will know I'm primed to a good Portuguese talent. But I think he's the next Jota coming out of Wolves. They've just signed Goncalves, ain't they? Not Goncalves.
Nunes.
The boy from Valencia.
What a midfield player.
Gonzalo Guedes.
Yeah, Gonzalo Guedes.
Him as well. Yeah, he's quality. I rate him.
They've got a replacement there, so I feel like Pedro Neto could be a deal that we could do, and I think that would be a sensible deal because he's played in the Premier League. And I actually said, Reece, you might remember this. I said that I wanted Jota at Man U when he was at Wolves.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, do you remember that one? That was a long time ago, mine. So if you don't need to say you do. But I did say that. I think there'll be a tweet somewhere saying it. But and I feel like he's another one. He's going to go to a top club, and I feel like that's a deal that we could potentially do. Whether we get outpriced by Wolves, like they've kind of done with Neves, I don't know. But sorry, I've went a bit off topic there. But
I'd gladly do it for Neto. At least it's a Premier League proven player. Like I wouldn't mind.
You know what you're going to get. The only issue with him, though, Reece, for me, is injury record.
Yeah,
he doesn't seem to stay fit. And I really like, if we're talking about wingers, I like Rafael Leao. Like, I really rate him. But, I'm just going off topic now, so I'm going to go back on.
He's immense.
Sorry about that.
He's immense. I think the best thing for the club, though, is if we put a look at it, there's another winger in the league that we actually should look at. And I'm actually surprised that the club said it was a ridiculous decision. We're wanting to look at pull his hamstrings on loan, but we're not going to sign Hakim Ziyech. Like I know Ziyech hasn't been brilliant for Chelsea, but I know which player I'd rather have. I'd rather have the winger that can actually play as a number 10, not the winger that gets injured every 25, 30 minutes. Like Ziyech at least understands Ten Hag style. I'd rather go for that. Neto is a fantastic option. I mean, he's a free-flowing winger, but I do agree with you, like in the sense that he can play the left, he can play through the right, but his injury record is absolutely shocking. But
the only thing that puts me off that deal, like, because the talent is 100% there, and he was a fantastic player when he was at Braga, to be honest. But he was a big talent, and then he's obviously went to Wolves, which seems to be the natural move for the younger sort of up and coming Portuguese players. But going back onto Antony, I think the kid has like raw ability, and I feel like the Stretford end in particular would love that type of player. He's got the Ronaldo, the young Ronaldo, the nanny arrogance about him when he's got the ball. He's got that flair, he's got that skill, he's got a fantastic left foot. He comes in from the right, which I do think is a problem, and I'm going to put it out here as well. With regards to the price tag, because I think, and don't shoot me down, this is just my opinion, I think Sancho's been awful since he's been at United. I'll be honest with you, I've not been impressed with him at all. I've been to Old Trafford and watched the boy live, and he's had about 15 minutes of playing well when I've been there. I think I was at like 4 or 5 games last season. And he didn't impress me at all. And I'm not saying it isn't going to work with him, but he's a prime example of you put all your eggs in a massive transfer fee bag and it doesn't work. Because let's be honest here, we all like Sancho. We all want him to do well, but he hasn't done well yet. He's been away for the amount of money we paid for him. I was expecting a lot more than what he's offering. Yeah. Whether it's the dressing room, whether it's he's not settled back in the city, whether I don't know, but he just isn't nowhere near the player that I thought he was going to be. In time, hopefully, he's got time on his side. He's got a contract on his side as well, time-wise. But that has to sort itself out soon, form-wise. Rashford's the same. I'm not going to get into Rashford. I'm not his biggest fan. I'll be honest with you. Keane knows that as well, but Keane will probably shut me off this show if I sit here and say anything bad about Marcus. But he's another one. If Man U sold him, I wouldn't have an issue with it. That's my take on Rashford. I'll leave it there. So to bring another quality winger into the club would be fantastic, but it's such a gamble because of the Sancho issue. He's a prime example of what can go wrong. And I don't feel like United, the reason why I've talked about Sancho, because I know I'm talking about a player we're not discussing, but the reason why I'm bringing him up is because the value. Smart. And I don't think we can get that amount of money wrong again. Whether your Glazers in, out, whatever, let's just concentrate on the signing and the money involved. And I think it's a massive risk for a boy that's doing well in the Eredivisie. I think he will go on to have a fantastic career at a big club. But at the moment, I don't know whether it's the most sensible move for United. If it's 100 million euros, if you're talking 45, 50 million, I'd be definitely, because I love the player. I think he's got so much ability and he is going to get better. Without a shadow of a doubt. He's going to be a regular international for Brazil. He's going to have a fantastic career, but I'm just about to come on to that, Greg, as well. I've just seen your comment there. I think Gakpo, and I watched him against Rangers. I don't think he lit the house on fire against Rangers, but you can see there's a player there. He's tall, he's physical. Physically, he's a tall boy. He's got a lot of pace. He's very tricky. Although I thought Tavernier done well against him the other night, I think you can tell that he's got that little bit of raw ability. And for 30 million euros or 30 million, I don't know whether it's one or the other. For about, let's say, 40 million euros, I feel like that's a more sensible deal. But the issue with me with Gakpo is he plays on the left. So that's Rashford's position. And we all know that Ten Hag's been briefed that he needs to get better out of Rashford. So is that a player that's going to come in and be a squad player, whereas Antony would probably be a starter? I don't know, but I feel like financially the Gakpo deal makes more sense. And I watched a really good Athletic breakdown of I don't know if you guys have watched the Athletic where they suggest signings for clubs. It's quite interesting because they go off of stats and stuff. And Gakpo was a recommendation for a Barcelona show that they were doing. And his stat-wise was fantastic. And I thought, he's obviously a player that people are not that aware of because he plays in the Eredivisie. But I think statistically-wise, he's a very intelligent player. But the Dutch League and the Premier League are totally different. What I like from Gakpo, and I see against Rangers, is physicality. As I said earlier, he's big. He's a big physical presence. And he's got very raw ability. So financially, I think that's a sensible deal for United to do. Like the Malacia deal, I think there's not that much risk financially for potentially a lot of reward. So if it was up to me and they were both the same price, it would be Antony, but they're not. So I feel like the sensible deal here is probably Gakpo.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So my thing is with that is... I do think that the right-hand side is going to be a problem, regardless of who we bring in, given the lack of threat we have from our fullback on that side. I'm one of these, right? I love Wan-Bissaka. There's just something about him that I do really like. And they say I'm the same with Rashford, but obviously he doesn't offer that threat going forward. I think Dalot needs to go. I understand that some people love him because there's this tribalism within the club that you're either a Wan-Bissaka or you're Dalot. Realistically, I think we could get an upgrade on both of them, and I'm not really that bothered.
I'd rather have Pavard. I'd rather have Benjamin Pavard, honestly.
But everyone has an alternative. But for me, if we were to bring Antony in, I think he'd struggle in the same way that Sancho struggled as well. Is that he doesn't have that threat on his right shoulder, or even just on the undercut that he can feed the ball off to, like he did at Dortmund so well. And I think no matter who we bring in, one of the areas that we need to strengthen before the window closes is our right back. I think left back we're a little bit better at it with, because Shaw, for all his faults, is semi-decent at attack. He's at least more attacking than our right-hand side. And Malacia, Malacia's only played a handful of minutes for us so far, but he looks promising. Like you said, Jamie, you've hit it on the head there. That there's not really a lot of risk with that transfer. 14 million quid is loose change to most Premier League clubs these days. So I think whichever winger we bring in, we also need to be looking at our fullback system and bringing in upgrades on that. And I'm sure that there'll be another show on that at some point. I'm sure we've not got time to sit and go into all of that. So look, we're gonna wrap things up there. I was briefed to keep it to about 45 minutes tonight. And there's been some fantastic conversations there, some fantastic comments coming in. And make sure you like and subscribe to the channel as well. There's a comment in here as well. There will be a preview for the Liverpool game on Weekly Armchair tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. But for now, that's it from us. Jamie, Reece, thank you very much for coming on. Fingers crossed Casemiro works out. And fingers crossed it's not the last of the business that we'll do before the window closes. And as always, it's Glazers out now and forever. We'll see you next time.